Welcome to more Dark Souls 2 with me, Oni Black Mage. We're back here at the Dragon's Aerie, making our way past a few more of these fire-breathing dragons who, like I mentioned before, were probably just intruding upon and massacring along the entire way. I was mentioning in the last video how it would be really cool if there was a built-in mechanic, and I don't know if there is or not, but it would be really nice if there was some sort of karmic return for either the amount of dragons you killed or the amount of eggs you smashed. And I'm just playing it safe and trying to be a nice guy, although it's kind of hard to avoid, not killing these dragons. And it reminded me of other games that do threads like this very, very well. There are two that come off as shiny examples to me of two RPGs that handle choices and threads very, very well, to the point where you're almost not even aware that you're making conscious thread decisions, and can result in drastically different game experiences. There are some where the choices you make and the consequences that reflect them are incredibly shallow. And let's see, the two big names that are lauded for their choices, but at the same time, when you actually look at the changes, or if you actually play the game over and do something different, you'll notice that the changes are very superficial, are the recent BioWare games. And again, I know it keeps sounding like I keep railing on it. I swear I'm not a hater. I'm a fan of it. I even have the giant Legendary Edition sitting on my bookshelf right now. Is Skyrim. And the reason why is, from a choice perspective, neither one of those games are very strong. They purport that they are. They give you lots of choices to do, but if you actually weigh the weight of each choice in terms of how it impacts the gameplay, there's no denying it. You can't pretend that these games have incredible impact on what it is you're doing. It really doesn't. For example, there is no point in Skyrim where your choice of joining a faction, or who you choose to save, or what you do makes a significant lick of difference. All it does is slightly adjust one or two scenarios in terms of who you're facing, and all you're doing is facing the opposite side of who you would have been facing if you chose the other way. It's a very black or white, non-organic choice. That's all it is. Basically, the guys wear blue uniforms instead of red uniforms. That is an incredibly shallow difference. You gain no significant status, you gain no significant gear, you gain no significant impact on the story. There's zero impact on the story. And I find this so incredibly shallow and weak. BioWare is different, except what they do is they convince you that you're making significant choices through morality and give you the illusion of choice. Of course, if anybody has ever played Mass Effect over and over, or Dragon Age. Actually, no, the first Dragon Age Origins did actually matter. They actually had threads that matter. I take that back. It was really just Mass Effect. Because Mass Effect, fantastic game. I consider it one of my favorite, Mass Effect 2 especially, one of my favorite RPGs of the last gen, easily. Fantastic. Superb piece of work. I highly recommend it. But at the same time, the choices you make are very superficial. All it does, the choices you quote-unquote, choose, substitute which models are used in the endgame credits. That's all that it changes. The cutscenes are pretty much predetermined. What people are going to say and how things go down are all pretty much predetermined. Nothing you say really changes much. Dragon Age Origins 2 did the same thing. Or Dragon Age 2 did the same thing, which was very disappointing. And that was even weirder, because there are many points where you do make significant story changes that seem to be reflected for a while, either as a mage or as the champion, or when you're trying to do the city, or when you're joining sides, and things do seem to be changing, but at the very, very end they correct you, and no matter what minds you've changed, no matter what important people you've saved, everything boils down to the exact same conflicts for the exact same motivations and reasons, which is very jarring and just wrong. It's just bad writing. It's very lazy. Dragon Age Origins actually had good branching paths, because depending on who you chose to save, in terms of even the towns, or what order you chose to save them in, actually did affect the options you made in terms of how you could resolve this quest versus the other quest, and locked you out of many options. For example, there's one quest where if you didn't choose to go to the Mage Tower earlier, then you don't have the option to exercise saving this one guy by going in his dream. Or if you chose to not save his village fast enough, then it became destroyed and you can never do any of the quest lines associated with it or rescue the people within it. Or if you chose to save this one guy earlier, he would come back and be an ally later. Or choices you made now would be reflected later in terms of people leaving dynamically in the lane of combat. All those add up, and there are more examples of those. So Dragon Age Origins did do a good job of choices that matter. It's a shame that that didn't reflect it in the sequel. But the two shining examples I can think of, off the top of my head, one is The Witcher 3. Witcher 3 does a fantastic job of choices and consequences, done through the gameplay, done through the actual story. If you go through The Witcher and not just choose, like, you know, I forget which one it is, if you join either the elf or you join the king's side, which already has incredibly different branching paths, and there's some intersecting quests, but the way you approach the quests are incredibly different too. Entirely different mission path lines and different quests open up. Not to mention different gear, different weapons. It's a very different experience, which is satisfying, frankly, because that really means that my choices were heavy enough to be reflected in the gameplay. I appreciate that. It wasn't just my ally is just different and I still keep going through the same levels, fight the same people for the same reasons. It wasn't something superficial like that. The paths you take, and even the story that gets uncovered is actually very different. The perspective from which you approach the story based on the choices you make actually tell a different story. There are many significant events that you actually participate in that you do not understand the full consequences or motivations behind. You just kind of take them for granted. And there are many loopholes, story loops, that remain either closed or my mistake, that still stay open, and you never close because you think you close it one way, but when you choose a different path, you close it a different way, which has a different impact on the story and the fights that you fight. There's a lot of depth to the story and the consequence they did. They did a great job with it, which is impressive because that entire franchise is based on a series of books, which you think would make it very static, but it doesn't. So good job for them. Let's see, this one, in my opinion, does arguably the best job, which is surprising because the gameplay itself is not very good. And that's a game called Alpha Protocol. If you play the game, you probably notice that it's an ambitious effort, but it kind of fell through on the production side. It's a very glitchy, not very clean experience. The controls are kind of sloppy, AI is very bad, the gunplay isn't very satisfying. You know, there's a lot of technical points to it that it needed a lot of work. However, it does two things. One thing that I argue is the best example I've ever seen, and that is conversations. You know how you come across many conversations in RPGs? I mean, obviously, you're constantly talking to people. If you've ever noticed, you are constantly talking to people. And in Alpha Protocol, the way you choose to talk to people, and it can go in 4 different attitudes, dramatically change not just a conversation, but the entire path the entire game goes along. It is very significant. Every conversation matters, and the mechanics are done so well, so dynamically, so naturally. You feel you're conducting a very natural conversation, which to me was impressive by itself, as an impressive achievement. Like the writing team, it's like they were completely different from the design team and programming team, because my gosh, they did such a stellar job. And who you choose to trust, who you choose to kill, not only matters for the immediate scenario, but for every scenario dynamically down the already dynamic thread you're going across. They had so many variables in terms of what you choose to say and what you chose to do that infected the gameplay, what options you had when presented with people in the future, of the consequences of your choices reflected in missions. You know, it was amazing that they had so much thought and detail provided into Alpha Protocol from a story perspective and the threads that they did. It's amazing. It's like, wow, I really wish more RPGs took note of this and copied this. Just this part, though, and the conversation part, not so much everything else. Because, wow, they put a lot of effort into that, and it shows. And the amount of the gameplay experience you have, you can play the game in dozens of different ways, and they are very tangible differences. That's impressive. It's very impressive. But, yeah. When you want to argue choices that matter, there are many shallow games that give you shallow choices that have shallow consequences. But there are other games out there. Absolutely. Definitely quote those two. Witcher 3 and Alpha Protocol. When it comes to choices, and choices that actually reflect impact, that actually carry weight, actually impact the story in very real and very tangible ways, those two games, shining examples. I don't even know if you can find a copy of Alpha Protocol. The game's so old and probably not that popular. You can probably find it in a bargain bin near you. Speaking of gameplay design, I like how, from a tactical perspective, this game allows you to attack dragons from different angles. I noticed that many arenas offer a way to attack them almost consequence-free, like just there I was attacking from a perch. That's pretty nice. I appreciate that. Oh, really? Navlan again? This guy really is hounding me. Alright, well, I'm not going to be taken in by him so easily this time. Damn, there you go. There you go. Bye. Bye, Navlan. I should never have risked letting him go. That was a mistake. Maybe on New Game Plus. The H feather that the lady gave me is pretty handy as an item, because if you look at it, what it does is basically an infinite use homeward bone. I have a few leftover homeward bones and I might just use them, but the H feather, wow, so that's why there's so many dead ends over here, because they anticipate you falling down and teleporting away. When they say try something, I wonder what they mean. Ooh, Ferris's Lockstone. I haven't really seen one in this area, though. I don't see a Pharaoh's locked door anywhere. There's all these bloodstains. Don't tell me people jumped. See, I have 4 homeward bones. I'm just going to use a few of them, since I have an infinite use feather right there. Yeah, when it comes to the story part, any RPG, that's like basically the big 3, like when you come to design, because the big 3 for any RPG is always, you know, the story slash drama, the world and world building of it, and of course the combat and fighting. Those are the 3, like the holy trinity, if you will, when it comes to RPGs, because those are the 3 factors that you are most actively engaged in as a player. And those matter the most, and you have to have a good balance of all 3. And it would be preferable if you could maximize all 3. But games like this, where the overt story is rather brief and not necessarily that apparent, it may not seem to have the strongest story, but as we've uncovered, the story itself is part of the journey you create out of it. You're actively building your own story. Now that still means that I can't credit it with having a well-written story, but I can at least credit it with having an enjoyable experience, a well-written experience. Because allowing me to have that personal freedom, personalizing this entire adventure for myself, I can appreciate that. There's some people that don't care and personally don't want that, but speaking for myself, and I don't care about what anybody else's enjoyment of this game is per se. I'm playing this game, I'm enjoying it, and that's what matters. So when you play it, if you want to enjoy it, that's what matters. Or if you don't enjoy it, then that's what matters to you. I can respect that. To each their own. So on that note, I personally enjoy the fact that I'm crafting my own story. I have an active imagination, I can let that go. I'm glad these big dragons don't respawn. Trying to do the best I can in terms of collecting all these little material bugs. Otherwise, it seems hidden drop-off points and hidden bridges seem to be the way to get around this area. I'm really taking my time. I almost forgot about this guy. I'm so glad that at least an exploding mummy that just deals with equipment damage and not per se actual damage. So I get the feeling we're getting pretty close to the end of this area, because there's really not too much, honestly. It's a pretty shallow, narrow area. Oh, he's gonna disappear, isn't he? Oh, he did. Darn, I keep missing my opportunity. Those two little bugs. Man, my sniping is off today. Oh, come on. He's gonna get away. Yep. Oh well. Maybe next time. I already have a maxed out Estus Flask, which is a shame because I still have Estus Flask shards, but like I said, you only have a cap of 12 usages and plus 5. Maybe that changes in New Game Plus, but that's how it is here. It seems to go back. And I think that links back to the treasure area up top. So let's go and take a quick detour back. Yeah, there's a little treasure there. What's the point of this? Yeah, this looks like a ladder that just leads back down to the bonfire room. I don't see the point of that. So let's just go over to the side here and drop down. Alright. Nice. That's always useful. Don't tell me this guy tried to jump. Yep, he tried to jump. Alright, well I'm certainly not going to do the same thing as that guy. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause here, teleport back to the bonfire, and we will pick it up next time. So once again, thanks for watching. I appreciate all feedback, comments. Please leave a like if you can. Comment on any of the progress, or if you have thoughts of your own on anything I've discussed. I really appreciate feedback and discussion. So come check me out next time on the next part as we continue Dark Souls 2. Thanks for watching again. Bye.